this is going to be the biggest mindset shift that you're going to have about reading books. So let me start off by saying this, that the reason you're reading a book, the reason you open up a book, the reason you start reading a book is not because you're just reading the book. The reason you pick up a book and that you want to read it is because you want to take action. You understand? The reason you're picking up, I'm going to say this again. The reason you're reading a book is because you want to do something with the information that is in the book, with whatever you're reading. Now, let me explain this a little more. A lot of times, especially guys who get into self improvement, they get books like The Laws of Human Nature, right? We get books like 4 Hour Work Week, right? We get books like Meditations, right? We get books like The Obstacle is the Way. We get Atomic Habits, all of these books which we get. Yeah, you should read this. Influencers tell you, people tell you, oh, you need to read this book, you need to read this book, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You should read those books. There's nothing wrong with that. But what's better is that, I mean, not what's better, but you need to look at your life right now, where you are in your life. Do you think by reading this book, your life is going to have a massive difference, a massive change, a massive impact? And it is possible to even read these books. This is, it's not necessarily, I don't mean that these books won't necessarily help you. But what I mean is that wherever you are in your life, most of the time, the books that you need to read are the books which you're not reading. Like, and there's this one thing. If you're honest with yourself, you don't actually need to read books. You really don't need to. Because why would you read a book, right? Let's be clear about this. Why would you pick up a book? Well, because you want to learn something. But why do you want to learn? If, let's say, we pick up Atomic Habits, we want to learn how to develop habits and how to stick to them, right? But then you have to be very clear that the reason I pick up this book is because I want to take action. Means I want to do something, really, not just read the whole book and then I'm gonna and then I'm gonna do something about, yeah, then I'm gonna take action with what's presented in the book. This is what I did. I read almost half of the book and then I was thinking, when I finish the whole book, then I'm gonna do something about it. And that's not the way to read the book. So what's the way? I will talk about what's the way, but first we have to very, very clear what books do you actually need to read. Look around, look around, like really, really in your life, where you are right now, what you need to do, the goals that you have, whatever things that you need to accomplish. The books that you should be reading should be only related to those things. You don't need to read books which are like, if you have a goal for this year, you should not be reading a book which is going to help you out like in 5 years. You should not be, because the thing is, if you're reading a book right now and you think that, yeah, it may not necessarily be, I may not necessarily implement it right now, but later I will, or you won't remember what you read, right? You won't remember what you read. Another thing, whatever book you're picking, you don't actually need to read the whole book. Like I said, your intent has to be very clear. What is the reason I am picking up this book? What is the reason? What do I want from this book? What am I expecting to get from this book? And that I will put into action. What is that thing, right? You have to be very clear. And when you are clear, when you pick up that book, whatever book that is, go into the contents, go into the chapter and read the chapters, the name of the chapters, whatever the chapter seems like that this chapter would help me in this stage of my life where I am right now. You only have to read that chapter. No other chapter. You don't have to. If all of the other chapters do not make any sense, if you think they're not necessarily going to help you in this moment where you are in your life right now, you don't need to read those chapters. The chapter which is only going to help you right now, read that chapter. And remember this: the only reason you're reading that chapter because you want to take action, because you want to do something. By reading that chapter, you get information, and by getting that information, you're going to do something with that information. What are you going to do? Well, that depends on what you read. Doing something, that means action. We are reading because we want to take action. Because here's the thing: you might think that oh, I'm going to read the whole book, and then I'm going to think about what I'm going to have to implement. You won't even remember what you read. And then when you have read the whole book, you will think that, oh, I don't feel like I got much out of the book. Or you might even think, but then you feel like, maybe let me get another book, and then sometime later when I come back to this book, then I will read it, something like that. You will have different thoughts like this in your mind, right? So you have to be very clear about what book you're reading and why you're reading that book, because the thing is, whatever book that you're reading, it has to help you right now in your state, in the stage where you are right now in your life. If it doesn't help you, you're wasting your time. And also another thing, which I just said previously, do you actually need to read the book? Most of the time you won't. You won't necessarily need to. You're just using that as an excuse to procrastinate. Procrastinate means that you know what you need to do, means you already have the action which you need to do, the thing which you need to implement, if you want to say. You already have that thing in front of your mind. Yeah, this is what I need to do. And then you will think, no, what if I just read one book about this specific about this specific topic, then I will take action? Well, you're simply lying to yourself. You're telling yourself that after reading this book, I will have more knowledge and I will implement that knowledge more. Most of the times you don't actually need new information. I mean, it does help to have better information, but then again, even if you're getting the new information, the new knowledge is a different thing. But the reason you're reading the information, whatever it is, because you want to take action. So now, when you are very clear about what you need to read, right? But first, like I said, do you actually need to read? You have to be very honest with yourself, because otherwise you're going to be wasting your time. You will read one book and then you will say, yeah, I read this book. What do I think I should do right now? And then previously, because you read the book, because you wanted to procrastinate, again, you either going to read another book or you're just going to waste your time. Why? Because you just read the book, not because you needed to read the book. You read the book because you knew, not because you knew previously, you already knew that what you need to do, but because you didn't want to take action, because it's not necessarily comfortable to always do the hard work or the real stuff which actually matters. So you're going to do the easy thing, which is reading book. So you read the book to procrastinate. So now this is out of the way. You have to be very clear if you need to read the book or not, right? When you're clear that you need to read the book, pick up the book and read the chapters. Now here's the thing, this is a little different kind of book. I mean, it's about laws of power. But even if I'm reading if I read a chapter which is very interesting, I think this chapter is always say less than necessary. Now if this chapter seems very interesting to you, that not necessarily interesting means that it would help you in the stage of your life where you are right now. If that chapter is going to help you, you read that chapter. You do not hurry. And when you're reading that chapter, you have to be very clear in your mind. The reason I am reading this chapter of this book is because I want to take action from the information which I read in this book, in this chapter. Now, to give this example, always say less than necessary. Now, in this chapter, what the author talks about is that in a lot of situations, by not controlling our tongue, we say things which we shouldn't say, and a lot of the times we ruin our relationships because of that. And obviously, like, this is more about power, but still, it's a good thing to have in your life, that you don't speak too much. And obviously, when you speak too much, your words don't have any value, right? Because they are not rare. Anyway, so when you read this chapter and you know that, yeah, I read the chapter, now what can I learn from this? What can I implement right now in this moment, right? You don't go to the next chapter. That's not what you're going to do, because the thing is, if you go to the next chapter, you're not even going to remember what you read previously. You might remember, but you have not done anything related to that chapter. So you only read that chapter. You're not going to go to the next chapters. For at least a week or two, you're only going to read that chapter. Even if you have to read it again, you're only going to implement, you're only going to take action. Even if you have to read the chapter 50 times, if you have to do that, you will do that. But the point was, you were reading the chapter because you wanted to take action. If you don't take action, don't read it. Simple, right? It's very simple. So this clears how you need to read book. If you actually need to read a book, because a lot of the times you won't actually need to read a book, you already know what you need to do, but you're gonna read a book to procrastinate. And the other thing is, a lot of the time, like I said, when you know you need to do the thing which you need to do, but you're gonna procrastinate by reading a book, it's better to actually do something, because by doing something you're actually gonna have more experience, and by having more experience, and having experience and learning from that experience is a lot better than reading a book, right? It's just the reality of life, right? That is why we kind of have to be more practical in life, and this is about being practical as well. You're not reading book because you just want information. You're reading book because you want to be more practical. Yeah, I'm reading this book because I want to know what I need to do in this specific area. Like if you're reading a book about public speaking, right? Don't start from the beginning of the don't start from the first chapter. Start from the chapters, read all the chapters, the name of the chapters, and then what chapter do you think is going to help you right now. You only read that chapter, and you have to be very clear what you have to be clear why you're reading it. But the mindset which I just first talked about is that the reason you're reading it because you want to take action. So when you have read that chapter, make points and kind of write a summary about, yeah, I read this chapter, now I needed to take action. Now what can I take from this chapter, and I have to implement that right now. Because if you don't implement it right now, you're going to forget about it. That's just the reality, right? Practical, you have to be practical here. If you're gonna read the whole book and then gonna read another book, that's not practical. You're wasting your time. So it's better to not read book. Just go out there in the real world, do something, right? Because if you like, it's better to go out and actually do public speaking than to just read a book at home and read just what to do and not implement. Like, it's better, because when you're experiencing that thing, you will learn, you will make mistakes, you will learn from that. By reading a book and not implementing, you're wasting your time. So, and like I said, but then again, books, obviously they are helpful, they are a lot more helpful, but then you're reading them only because you want to take action. Otherwise they are simply otherwise you're simply wasting your time. And here's the thing, especially with guys, when they get into self-improvement, they are recommended by all of these books, and they first don't know how to read them. They read all of these books, and then months have passed and they don't even remember what they read. They didn't take any action from the book. And first, like I said, you don't need to read the full book, right? Only read the part of the book which is going to help you right now in your life with whatever goal you have, right? If it's you want to improve, if you want to learn a skill, right? First, you have to be clear, do you actually need to read a book, right? Most of the time you actually won't necessarily need to, because like you can actually this is not necessarily good advice, but then I mean, you can read the book, but then like I said, do you actually, you have to be honest, most of the time you already know the answer. Most of the times you know the answer, so you would be very clear with yourself, do you need to read the book or not? If it's a copywriting book, like it could be anything, do I need to read this book right now? If yeah, this is a good thing which you can question, which you can ask yourself, is there something better which I can do right now if I don't read the book? If there's nothing better, or if you don't know what you need to do right now, then read the book. If you know what you need to do and you're still thinking, I should read the book, maybe the book will help. But if you already know what you need to do, you don't actually need to read the book. So keep this in mind, it will be very helpful. And this mindset, keep this thing in your mind. The reason you're reading a book is because you want to take action. Have fun.